Welcome to Today in EVE Online. It is December 9th, 2019. I am Matterall. Let's see what's going on in EVE Online. We have a few things that we've picked up. To give you an idea of what goes on for the show is we normally open up about 6 or 7 tabs in different places to look for news for EVE Online. And then we try to cover the things that will come and go before the Talking in Stations shows. So anything that's kind of too small for those shows, we'll pick those up. But we'll also hit on the bigger themes. And of course, we'll give you all of our opinions all the time. So there's a few things that I was looking at. And one is Eve Echo's AMA, Ask Me Anything, is going to happen on December 13th. And that's going to be from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. UTC. And 8 p.m. and 9 through 9 p.m. UTC. That's Universal Time. So we'll give you a link on that in a second. We'll also talk about the possible release of Clear Skies with new technology, which might be interesting. And looks like someone got banned as an alpha when they were just out of character creation mode. And that was very mysterious. So in looking into it, there is something about NVIDIA's GeForce streaming service or Google Stadia streaming service that is not compatible with EVE Online rules. And therefore, the person was banned just for using a technology on their computer, not for any of the behavior that they had. Kind of interesting. We'll go into that. But let's first start with Twitter and see what's going on here. We look up Tweet Fleet because Tweet Fleet is basically the hashtag that is used for EVE Online for the players that populate Twitter. So instead of being hashtag EVE Online, it's #flag Tweet Fleet. Something was created a long time ago and has just kind of stuck. Okay. Good morning. Good morning. So just getting something set up here.
Hello, how are you?
Good morning.
Well, it's evening for me.
Vapor. Oh, yeah, English.
It's 4:10. In fact, I can see the moon from my window.
4 o'clock in the UK. Is it dark or does that come a little later?
It's the sun's below the horizon now. It's twilight, you know.
Wild. I keep saying good morning, and I got to remember it's not who the audience is.
Yeah, I don't think people are mind. I mean, everyone knows it's international. You just greet people in whatever is your time zone, really. I guess, doesn't it? I think everyone knows.
Do you know what I like? I subscribe to something on Apple TV. It's a channel called Brit Pop or something like that. I forget. And it has like the news, half-hour news, morning news from the UK. And so I come home at night and watch UK news that was there for the morning. And when they're throwing it to a reporter that's out, I guess out of the studio, the reporter's saying like, here we are at this, street. It's completely dark because their morning news happens when it's still dark outside. Or your morning news.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I never really thought about that.
Yeah, it's really strange because if you see any of our morning shows, they'll go to a reporter who's outside the studio and it's like, it's kind of like dawn or past dawn. But in the English news, it was dark. I love that. I like getting up before the sun comes out. Anyway, good to see you, Vapor. Thanks for hanging out with me.
That's all right, no worries. What are you up to anyway? I thought you sounded a little bit jaded recently with the New Eden.
Oh, I did. Just so you know, we're streaming right now.
Oh goodness.
Yeah, it's all right. Yeah, just so you know.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. I'm willing to talk about that. Jaded when I was writing in. Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. First, I want to say buenos dias to Edison Roberts. Good morning. It's not morning for the Europe. It's evening, so there you go. About the other day, Vapor, you bring up something that happened where I believe Harvey was talking about the changes that had been announced, that 2.5 days was not sufficient in order to create fights over structures, because a lot of people will only be able to play on weekends, the casual players that call up all their friends to jump in and play. And therefore, if you are to reinforce a structure over the weekend when your guys can play, the actual kill time or the structure timer, because it's 2.5 days, will always fall off of the weekend. So let's say you reinforce something through its armor timer on a Friday, you won't be able to destroy it until basically Monday morning. If you reinforce it on a Saturday, probably Tuesday morning. And if you reinforce it on Sunday, it'll be well into the week, like Wednesday morning, because it takes 2.5 days to get that final timer. So you can't reinforce it over the weekend, because but when you need to kill it will be during the week. And then the reverse is true. So if you reinforce it for the weekend, you would need to reinforce it like on a Thursday, and then 2.5 days later, over the weekend, it'll come out into final reinforce and you can actually destroy it.
There must be. I know people say, "Oh, there's an easy answer. Just do this or just do that." But if there's an easy answer, why is it not easy?
Well,
there's always this problem, isn't there, about when it comes out?
Absolutely. There's a competition between those that want to destroy a thing and those that want to not be destroyed while they're away for the weekend. And I think that was one of the counter arguments, is that you have a structure and you go away on a Friday and you come back and it was destroyed while you were away. So that seems a little untenable too. I don't know how what the balance is. It's a very difficult balance. Obviously, that's why CCP is taking slow, incremental changes and looking at them. A lot of what you see out there is, this is a good direction, and it's not the answer, but it's a good step in the right direction, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's just small steps. I think they just don't want to do big changes, because you can never foresee exactly what happens, the mechanics of it, how it plays out when you have thousands of players interacting with it. So
Mm-hmm.
take small steps. They can take small bites, gradually make their way to a place where more people will feel happy about it. I think that's the right approach. It's not, things just don't happen overnight like that.
Yeah. So the question you asked me is, why was I so grim on the view of that? And if I think back at the moment, I probably had coffee or something and I was aggressive. But the reality was, when I saw Harvey talking about, like, well, they didn't go far enough and therefore this change isn't a good change. And I looked at that and I just thought, and I had just had, I think, a talk with Billy, that there is kind of an appearance of conflict of interest. That's the way I put it, but that's not a really the right way to put it. But there is an appearance that CCP is kind of making the changes that are good for nullsec or bigger groups. And the appearance of that is a perception problem. Now you can say, well, you're helping that perception problem grow. Well, yes, I'm also calling attention to it as a problem that needs to be considered. So when CCP makes changes, even if they're not making the changes that nullsec wants, there needs to be some kind of I don't know what the best way to put this is, but there needs to be more separation between the changes that CCP is making and the stuff that nullsec players want. Otherwise, it looks like they're basically just doing the bidding of nullsec players. And at that point, again, the game becomes very much unrealistic and rigged. And a rigged game is not worth playing. A broken game is better than a rigged game. And that's why I keep bringing that up. So I was triggered on that point, and I was very pessimistic, thinking that the only things we're hearing these days are about changes that are affecting PvP large-scale nullsec.
Yeah, but you know that one of the reasons for that, though, is because we're in this community where we're the ones that are all talking about it. So it almost perpetuates itself amongst the people who are talking about it. So it always seems worse than it is. And all the smaller things that perhaps don't quite affect Null the same way, or the people that are shouting the same way, they sort of slip under the radar or get changes. And we tend to ignore them because they don't bother us. And we're the ones that are generally shouting loudest, either for or against.
Yeah. I think you're right, Vapor. I think I kind of succumbed to that and unwisely put it out there and probably alarmed some people like you, which I shouldn't have done. I've since thought, okay, I have opinions. I should let the opinions kind of not be said before they're actually thought about. So that's something I will strive to do. Spod's in here with us too. But thanks for pointing it out. I really appreciate it. I know where you're coming from because you were a supporter of TIS early on, and we really appreciate that. So when you said that, I thought, yeah, I should chill out.
That's all good. It's all good.
Yeah. The reality is, it's Talking Stations is, I wouldn't say it's difficult to do, but we're going on more than 3.5 years now of showing up every Sunday, or twice a week, or sometimes more than that when we have specials or we have alternative shows, and then doing this daily show, and all this stuff is like, it's the reason it works is because it's habitual, right? Like we just do it as habit. It's kind of like on tracks, but it doesn't mean it's not tiring, and it doesn't mean there's not other things I would rather do, and that sort of stuff. So also you're seeing a bit of burnout play through, and what motivates players past burnout and getting tired of a thing or wanting to change it up is it depends, but it's different things. Signals. Are we getting the audience share that we want? Are we getting people right here in chat saying hello and being part of a community? Because then you feel like it's not work. It feels like it's relaxing. And then also you look at your markers. Are people listening to the stuff that we're producing? Are people, you look at all the analytics or the metrics, and then you analyze those and you figure out, like, are we doing something meaningful? Because at a certain point, if you're not feeling like you're growing, then there's really, for me, it's not an issue of status quo because everything is so dynamic. So if you're not growing, it feels like you're falling apart. I don't believe, like Dirk McGurk does, that just keep doing the thing and have fun and don't put any pressure on yourself. I think that's true. And to some degree, Open Comms and the show that he's done is the same show, for the most part, that it was 4 years ago. And that's great because people have that. It's a known thing. But I don't work that way. And I need to see growth. I need to see change, or I'm not interested anymore. That's true in real life, and it's true in EVE Online as well.
Well, you're doing a great job. The show just gets better and better. So if you're feeling burnout, I mean, absolutely take a step back and let some other people take on the reins a bit and take the pressure off. And still a great show always. I absolutely
thanks,
love it.
Man. I appreciate it. You've always been there for us. I really appreciate that. And I have let other people take over. The shows that you're seeing now are, for Talking in Stations, are conceptualized and executed by the crew. So I don't feel like it's just me anymore. And this Talking in Station's taken on a life of its own. But I really do think just doing the same thing and producing the same shows over and over again is you can't do that in the environment where disruption is kind of the norm. And we're in a very futuristic and almost advanced hobby, right? This isn't woodwork that has years of tradition and tools and rules and best practices and safety and all that kind of stuff. This is talking about a futuristic game, but what we're doing is using technology, the latest technology, and using the latest means to do to do that, to talk about something that's futuristic, we use the closest we have to futuristic technology. And it's a very disruptive arena. And so you want to make sure you're not sitting still in that sort of environment. So when you're in a dynamic environment, status quo is not a good strategy. Okay, shall we talk about something? Let's see here. EVE Online Making Money video. This came out earlier today. I thought it was pretty cool. And I'm not sure it's a bad idea on... Let me turn that volume off. Oh, look at that. They have the Katya Sia, or Katya Say is on the beginning of that, which is kind of cool. And this video here tells you basically how to make money in the game. And it talks about 5 things and then a few variables, but mining, being a manufacturer, and then the vampiric PvP, taking what other people manufactured or are trading and stuff. And it goes into it on a very surface level, but it does describe that there is depth there, which I thought was a pretty good thing. And you can find that on Twitter, EVE Online. I guess that's EVE Online account. And I guess they call it a tutorial, but I'm not sure it's a tutorial. It doesn't really show you how to do anything. It just tells you what the possibilities are. Oh, we got a bunch of people in here now. Orion and Lichgrave, how you doing?
Hey, hey.
Have you seen this video, Lichgrave? You're a money-making chronicler.
Yeah, I did see the video.
What'd you think?
I think it's okay. I mean, it's not in any way detailed, which is fine. It doesn't have to be. It just explains all the different ways that you can make ISK in this game.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they call it a tutorial, and it's not. It's more like, well, I don't know. I don't know what another word would describe what that is.
I think informational video is good. It's. I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of tutorials, quote unquote tutorials for EVE out there that are just explaining possibility. So, I mean, I guess it's just a label. I don't know. It works though.
Yeah. So it's a neat little video. It tells you how to make money in EVE Online. Gives you some of those options, and check that out. Get rich in EVE tutorial. Yeah, I don't know. Tutorial is not. This game's too. Any one of those needs a separate video just to go a little bit deeper, because it doesn't really show you how to. It just says what you can do. Well, I guess that's all right. So that's pretty good. Let's see what else is in here. I don't know CCP Ice Cream. There's Paul, who's no longer CCP Falcon. I guess he's still in Iceland. Let's see. Chocolate Rain. Normally I don't talk about my EVE Online hopes and dreams, but tonight I will sit in an Atana. That's a very expensive Alliance tournament ship. So she's able to do this because she's friends with some of the people who stole them from Pandemic Legion. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know if that's actually stolen from Pandemic Legion, but Blue Melon, who's a former PL guy, was a trusted Pandemic Legion guy, and they let him kind of hold the Alliance tournament ships since he was involved in that. Someday I will figure out how not to have a home phone so that doesn't happen. So this Pandemic Legion guy, he's the one with the keys to a lot of the ships, and then one day he says, I'm going to keep them. And that was a major violation in trust. The amount of money the amount of wealth that was extracted from Pandemic Legion was crippling. Somehow they survived it, but so Blue Melon has actually taken one of those state ravens, I believe, and he's about to give it to ProGod to sell it over this HyperNet relay, So that first big thing that ProGod is going to do is actually a stolen ship. Hey, it's EVE Online. That kind of stuff happens. I don't feel that sorry for Pandemic Legion, but I do think that's kind of crappy.
Welcome to Eve.
Yeah. So let's see. The Blue Melon story is amazing, according to Ron USMC. He says it was retribution. I don't actually know the part that's retribution, but I've only heard it from people in Pandemic Legion. I've talked to Blue Melon before, but no idea what his side of the story was. Oh, good. Maybe you could tell us what the retribution was for that stolen pile of ships.
Yeah. So the story is amazing, and I retell it probably once a month because it backs up one of my core beliefs, which is recruitment scams are bad. And if you recruitment scam, you should feel bad. And the whole Blue Melon theft was retribution for Blue Melon getting recruitment scammed by PL, right? So Blue Melon had and I think it was an Erebus that he had bought from Villy, right, back in the day. And when he was getting recruited into PL, they stole it from him, right? Hey, give us your stuff and we'll, move it down. And then they invited him to Corp, and then he dropped, right? So he gets, his stuff stolen, and he quits the game for like a year or whatever. And he comes back, and he starts to get really good, and he tells the big long story on Reddit when he did steal it, but he went to an AT team and they did pretty well. I think it was Hydra or something, and then PL invited him over, and he was on their AT team, and I think he was the captain one year, and but all the time they were kind of joking about the time that he got recruitment scammed, right? Everybody remembered it and whatnot, and they all had like a laugh about it. Well, then, add a couple of years, and Blue Melon's like, you know what? I think it is a fitting end to my Eve career, which is I finally pay them back for what they did to me. So I love this story. I love it.
You believe it?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't believe it. that doesn't sound right.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Elise commented on it. Elise would know, but no one said that's a lie or anything on the big Reddit thread.
Oh, well, that's not... I figure people who are going to say that's a lie on Reddit aren't really looking to get their signal out, because I imagine that's a hard place to kind of make your case.
Yeah, I mean, the kind of the bad thing is that, and Blue Melon said that none of the ships that were stolen were actually owned by people. These were owned by PL as an entity. And, so he didn't, steal from a particular player. That was one of those things. And then the other one was, that it is just a couple of people doing this stuff, right? So it's, like a couple of people recruitment scam, and I don't know if you should punish the entire corp or the alliance for it. But if you remember, this is Pittsburgh got recruitment scammed, and he came back with a vengeance, right? And now, and that's why I kind of talk about the Blue Melon story, because he came back with a vengeance.
Yeah, no. Well, I don't see that's not it's just too convenient. It doesn't make sense to me. I've seen this before many times, where you have somebody who's trusted, and then they decide they're going to do something that's unethical, and then they find a reason to say, this was my plan all along. And it happens a lot. Like there's some bankers that were trusted with a lot of people's money, and I think they actually start out with good intentions. These bankers, not Blue Melon or those guys, but they start out with good intentions. They get bored or they get tired, or it becomes too much work for them, and it would be a lot of work to separate out the money and give it back. So instead, out of like sheer laziness, they're just like, I'm just going to keep all the money and take off. And either take a break from the game or do something else. And that's happened a few times where what wasn't a scam was a good idea, but the people that were doing it decided like, well, it's too much work, so I'm just going to take the money. And I kind of feel like this is kind of the similar, like almost the reason was made up afterwards. That's what it seems like from what I know. And I think that ship that's being sold wasn't just a PL ship. It belonged to a person. In fact, I'm sure of it. I just don't remember what that person's name is. So
yeah, I don't know about that ship in particular, but I do know that a couple of those ships did end up in other people's hands. In the thread, he talks about, that he wasn't going to sell them and et cetera, but I know that a couple of them did end up in other people's hands.
He said he wasn't going to sell them, but a few ended up in other people's hands, and then one's going up for auction? Like, that doesn't sound like it's cohesive. Listen, I'm an outsider in this. I do.
Same here.
I have talked to Blue Melon on one occasion. I think we had to. I forget what it was. What the topic was that we were talking about. It was probably PL's behavior, and it being bad. So it's not like PL doesn't deserve some of the crap they get. They certainly do. But also.
Well, I mean, it was only a couple of people, that's the thing, right? It's not like an organized cartel of PL, right? It's just a couple of people, and those people can be in any group,
Right. Yeah, but they're representatives of the greater whole, and as representatives, that's what you get. It's like
no,
do that on your own time, kind of thing.
It's let's see. Sorry, I'm dealing with some technical stuff here. Well, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said no. You should finish your point, and that's fine. I think the no group is representative of all the players in it. This is EVE Online, and people put up with a lot of cultural, cultural differences. In other words, I'll be in the same group with people in NC. And people in NC. Do objectionable things. I'm still in that group. They don't represent me. I think that's the norm in EVE Online. The smaller the group, the more cohesive it could be. And one of the problems is that people group up to win. They don't group up for cultural reasons. And the cultural reasons to leave are not strong enough to break apart alliances. That's why you have giant groups. They don't all like each other, but they're grouped up to win. Hey, Olmeca, how you doing?
Hey, what's up?
Good.
Can you guys see me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Let me just turn you up a little bit. Okay. What's new?
Oh, today is my extraction day, so I'm extracting my AAT accounts and harvesting them for skills, and then getting them back to their camping spot. So it's like a 5-6 hour marathon. I was looking for something to watch on Twitch, and
and you saw us. Tell us about Extraction Day. This is something that we don't normally get to hear about. What is it, and what are you talking about here?
so I'm one of those EVE players who have lots of accounts. So I have 80, right? 45 of them are cloaky campers, and 21 of them are allocated busher accounts, and the rest is just PP accounts. So what I do is I have to. Right now, I'm cloaky camping Delve. Actually, yesterday we killed 2 supers and 3 carriers thanks to the cloaky campers.
Oh,
in Delve.
In Delve?
Yeah. We don't post them anymore because it's a super kill or 2 is now
God,
common.
what a change! Yeah.
Yeah. Now what I do is first I gather them all in certain systems and then bridge them to MPC station with my blobs, and then and imagine doing that for 45 accounts, and then so CCP gifted some SP, so I use that SP, and also I have a lot of SP that's accumulated over time. So what I do is I buy extractors and skill extractors in Jita, and contract them to these characters in stations, and then extract them for skills, and sell the skill extractors back in Jita for money, so I can keep these characters up with low maintenance costs. And then I undock and put them back to their respective systems. Each one has one system, so it takes like 6 hours or something in total.
Oh, yikes. And you do that every month?
I try not to do that every month. If I have money, for the PLEX cycle, I'll just pay for the PLEX and do it next month or something. So this is now the third month, so I have a lot of SP to extract actually.
So when you're farming skills out of these characters, you're basically creating a character. You get it over a certain threshold, 5 million XP, and then you start to use the accumulating SP skill points as a farm. In other words, you're growing the SP and then you harvest it, and this is what your harvest day is. Do you put all, how do you actually do that so that you don't have to click on a bunch of different skills? Do you find one level 5 skill that's really long so you can just harvest that one skill over and over again?
Yeah, so for me, it's the astrometric acquisition, and those scanning skills are very long to train. So I
Yes.
can train them for 3 months, and they still keep going.
Yeah.
So I have one skill queue. I copy paste them across multiple characters. So it's one skill training over time. If it's 1 month, I extract 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. But it's one skill queue, and I always extract the same skills. And when you train them, campers use scanning skills a bit in particular situations. So it's nice to have them when you have them, and then you extract them. So it's a worse scanner, but it still does its job. But yeah.
Well, that's an important point that you can. Oh, it just slipped my mind because I was trying to turn something off over here. But you
Yeah,
have. Go ahead.
it benefits me to train the skills that I use for extraction over the month. My characters, or 3 months, say, my characters become better scanners, and then I have to extract them, and they're worse scanners.
Yeah, a lot of people use science skills because there's a bunch of those, and that way you don't get confused. But I like those. The range finding skills, or whatever the scanning skills are, those are huge skills. They take a long time, so you can burn on them for a long time. And then you would harvest out of those skills and put those injectors up for sale. And how much do you make doing this sort of thing? Do you know?
Oh no, I have a cost per character. I think it's been quite a long time now since skill farms are not profitable. Even with +5 implants, what I use is +3, because I typically die in these characters. Campers, they die.
Oh,
They
because you're
both
actually
die.
using them. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. With +3s, I have typically like 200 to 500 million each month per character cost, depending on how much is the PLEX, how much is the extractors, injectors. So I'm just minimizing the cost of upkeeping these characters. So many campers.
Got it.
I'm not earning money with
So,
this.
so
My
you're not
money comes
farming.
from my yo no, I'm not farming for money. I'm farming to keep these accounts in space, so I can kill carriers and supers and so on.
Right. Well, that's a good
And
point.
the main part of my money, it comes from excavator bushing. So
Right. So that's an important point that I wanted to point out. This is what I forgot just a second ago, was that you can take a skill plan and copy it and import it into different characters. So you can take the same plan and multiply, put it into different characters. Is that correct?
Yeah, actually, CCP made a lot of developments in like skill queue and so on. I know when UI changes, people typically don't like it because there is a status quo bias. There are the things that people are used to, but functionality-wise, the skill queue and fitting a ship and so on. So these daily things came a long way since like 3-4 years.
I think it was a great change. I love it.
Well, it makes a lot of sense for, and it will for our Fleet Academy to be able to say, you're not quite there yet. You need these skills to participate in this seminar. Here's the skill queue. Pop it in there, and Bob's your uncle. You'll have the skills in 15 days or however long it takes. Pretty good for passing on knowledge. They used to be a little more difficult than that. So again, you're not farming these characters. You're not making money off them. Some people do, but you are not. You use these characters to actually engage, delve, try to destroy some things, which you recently did. And most of your money is made through capturing excavators, which are giant mining drones. And those are worth a lot. And then when you capture those, you sell those on the market.
Yeah, back to guns typically.
Back to the people you stole it from is what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, excellent. Okay, so thanks, Olmeca.
Can I be here to listen?
Of course. No, yeah, I want you to stay. Don't go anywhere. I want you to participate. It's always good to hear from you. Anyway, if people don't know, Olmeca is part of CSM, and some of the stuff that we're talking about the CSM has known about and probably talked about. So the next thing is, let's have a look here. Ron, I think we finished our little story, right, about Blue Melon and the state's Navy or the Navy state?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if the state Navy's from him. I mean, I only know about that story, right? And because it's so, poetic, and it's that kind of classic Eve tale, right? Like the theft and then add 7 years and another theft. And, and I love on the Reddit thread, that the top comment is, he says, and that's how you charge interest on a stolen Erebus.
Yeah, I would appreciate it more if it wasn't so convenient, I think. Like, there isn't any evidence that he thought about it beforehand. It's just kind of after the fact, you can make up the narrative. And so that you're not such a wormy guy for taking off with a lot of other people's stuff. But if it was, I mean, I don't know. There should be some kind of should be some kind of evidence. Because again, you can't just say like, this was my plan all along. When things turn out your way.
I completely understand where you're coming from because, it's always that the convenient excuse, right?
Well, nobody wants to be a bad guy.
Yeah. Oh, no, you don't understand. X or Y is the reason that I, deceived this or that. But, I think we're going to, number one, we have to talk to Elise. We're going to have to get Elise because I want to ask him now. Now you have me thinking about it.
That's who I talk to a lot, but I also talk to other people. Anyway, yeah. But sure, talk to Elise. He'll tell you, and he's a fair guy, so he'll tell you his perspective on it.
I think, some people really just get hurt by these sort of recruitment scams. Maybe it's a particular moment in their Eve career that they're very hopeful and excited about maybe joining this new group or something, and they've jumped through all these hoops, and to take advantage of them at that moment is particularly hurtful. And I think a lot of these, and especially in this world, right, in the Eve world, where you can get payback, right? Like you can do this that doesn't include 5 attorneys, right? Or, calling the cops or something. It's like here, your future is in your hands, right? And if you want to pay them back, well, some elaborate scam or something like that. And I think, and just like I was really surprised when we were interviewing Pittsburgh and he was like, saying this, I'm like, wait, what? Did we talk a year ago? And he still, had that burning fire inside of him for us. And that was, 4 years ago now. So I think, recruitment scams in particular, are just vengeful, just waiting, and kind of set these guys in motion. Tomorrow, right? Yeah.
Yep. Tomorrow. Yeah, I think they did. Yeah.
Oh, so it
Yeah,
was. I just figured out, or actually, somebody just pointed out that I'm muted. Okay, sorry about that. Thank you for telling me. I was muted because I had a hard drive back there that was making a lot of noise, and I was trying to cut that out. So I shut it off. Okay, back to what we're talking about. HyperNet Relay comes in tomorrow on the 10th. So we assume. I haven't
Yep.
seen any confirmation. Have you guys seen confirmation?
I think it's with the patch, right? And we get that, and we also get the kicking over sandcastles tomorrow as well.
Yeah, yeah, those were joint, I'm pretty sure.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just double check though, because it should still be on the launcher.
Right. It makes sense. This is called the market release, and the only thing that is market related is this HyperNet Relay. So it probably will. I just haven't seen it yet. Okay. And the first thing that's going to be sold by ProGod and his new Gentleman's Club kind of exclusive Discord that only people in there can bid on. What could go wrong? Is
What could go wrong? Perfect plan.
is this this what is it?
The Raven state issue, yeah.
Okay, I'm stumbling all over the place. So somebody tell me what's so special about that ship, if you can.
The Raven state issue is one of the most rare ships in the game. Let me find that article. But there's only 4 of them.
Yeah.
And, with the price, so one of them has been sold, and I think it was 2 years ago, and it sold for something insane, like 2.5 trillion or something ridiculous. Because usually ships like this, the amount of ISK involved doesn't come in ISK. It comes in, the form of goods. So basically, if you want to trade AT ships, you would get like another AT ship or something, and ISK. Or like if you want like a Moloch, you would trade like an AT ship and then whatever. But I think the interesting thing about this is that so there's 2 fees attached to the price of the object, right? And if it is 3.5 trillion, then that means of that 3.5 or 350 billion are going to be fees. And of that, half of that 5% is going to have to be in hyper cores. And those are the things that you have to buy. So there's going to be, 175 billion in these hypercores that you're going to have to buy, that even if it doesn't sell all the tickets, still goes away, right?
Well, that means that if you don't sell all the tickets, then the raffle never happens. So nobody gets it. It goes back to the owner, but you're still out the taxes for that huge price, is what you're saying.
Well, there's the taxes, and then there's the new items that are used to put up the raffle.
Yeah, you don't get the cores back either.
Yep, you don't get the cores back, but you do get the tax back.
Oh,
yeah, you do get the tax back. Yeah.
Yeah, but you don't get the cores, and that's the biggest sink because that's what costs PLEX. Right?
Oh,
So,
that's wow. That's
So basically,
Yeah.
Basically, in 5% value of the item auctioned, you're gonna pay hypercores, and that's like PLEX sync or something like
Yeah.
that.
That's
Yeah.
But the
Plex.
other part is
Yeah, Plex
yeah,
sync, yeah.
yeah, it's a PLEX sync, and then the other 5% is the ISK sync. So it's half PLEX
Mm-hmm.
sync, half ISK sync.
Let's go over that. I think that's a very, very important point for people who are going to want to participate in this. And I don't know if that's clear. I was unclear on it, but that doesn't mean anything. If you put up a raffle, you will automatically lose 5% of the overall money
Well,
that you're marking up, right?
yeah. So, like, if as an example, so we wanted to, let's say, I want to put up a raffle for an item that is 100 million.
Mm-hmm.
So to put up that raffle, I have to pay the equivalent of 5 million in the hypercores, which, the exchange rate, Rise said is going to be about 10 to 1 plex. So you're going to put up 5 million, which would be like a plex and a half, which would be something around, 15 hypercores to put that up. Now, on top of that, out of the winnings, right, 5% of that, so another 5 million is going in taxes and an ISK sync. So you're only going to get back, 95% of that ISK.
Yeah,
Well, the
it's pretty
important
strict.
point, and what's shocking is, to me, is that 5% comes out of the cores, which are related to Plex,
Yeah.
not taxes. You get your taxes back. Oh, and that makes the Plex sync, that makes that a little more, has more teeth to it now. Like you're definitely gonna see Plex start to leave the game, which means if there's more Plex leaving the game, prices go up.
Yeah,
Potentially.
basically
Potentially.
CCP is just taking 10% of every raffle. 5% of that is going to be in the hypercores that they have to buy separately, and the other 5% is going to be in ISK.
10%. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot. That's steep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically, if you wanna say you bought something for 10 billion and you wanna make profit of it, you have to sell it, raffle it for at least more than 11 billion, or else
Yep.
you won't.
Okay, so this makes sense. This is why the people, ProGod, is getting kind of cold feet about this, because they're putting up something that is essentially priceless. Only 4 of these ships in EVE Online. They're collector's items. Nothing can really match them. Maybe not even gold magnets, which are also extremely rare. And these things will cost so much. Like you made an example of 100 million. But these are going to be maybe 2 trillion, 2.5 trillion. So 10% of that is a huge price to even put the raffle up. But imagine that all the tickets don't get sold, because you only have 3 days to sell them, and then it's over, whether you made it or not. At that point,
So that all depends on basically how much markup they are gonna do for the price of the thing. For say they purchase it for 2 trillion, and they want to raffle it for 2.2. So they want to raffle it for 20% profit, right? So that's like 400 billion, and then if they sell half of the tickets, they can purchase the other half and still make up for the lost tax value. So it depends on what percentage of the tickets that they sell. If they sell more than half and they say they want to do 20% markup, then they already cover the cost of ISK and hypercores. If they want to sell 30% markup, the higher the markup is, the better their chances of making the tax back is, but also like maybe less people will buy it if the items are too expensive. So I guess it's all a market strategy, and nobody knows the optimal point maybe until some kind of equilibrium
right.
hits.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be a learning curve to people who are using this. And that's why I feel like, to me, this has got me kind of excited. Again, I don't like the ethics of the gambling aspect of it. I don't like the ethics of having people so close to their bank account piped right into this thing through PLEX, because literally you're one button away from buying PLEX, which buys cores, which gets you into the raffles. Forget the ISK part. That's not as big a deal, but just having you that close to your actual money and piping it right into this behavioral mechanism is pretty scary, and I don't know about that. But I want to say real quick, thanks very much on Anten for pointing out that there are 4 Stratios emergency responders in the game as well. And the gold magnets, I think there was only ever 4 of those. The point isn't the rarity of this ship. I think that is a big part of it. But it's also, this is a legendary ship because it was one of the most sought after ships for a very, very long time. It's very much a status symbol. All right. Okay, that's good. So the PLEX is going to be leaving the game quick because that's what doesn't get refunded, whether your offer goes or doesn't go. Offer is the official word for the raffle. So HyperNet has offers. That's what they're called.
Oh, and just to complete that, so the Raven was an AT tournament prize for the 3rd Alliance tournament.
Yeah. I don't. How many were actually given out? I think one was
4.
actually destroyed, though. If I'm not, no, it was Apocalypse that was destroyed. My bad. There was
the Apocalypse State issue or something. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a famous battleship that was actually destroyed in the Alliance tournament, and it was high drama when that thing was getting taken down. There used to be a guy. Oh, what was his name? He used to fly like before anybody else. He would fly these extremely expensive ships, and he would do it in the Alliance tournament. I think he flew 2 of them. And in doing so, like the stakes of that match went up tremendously, because what you're looking at is a routine match. It turns into like a match of the century because something worth trillions can be destroyed, and was. Oh, okay.
On that thread, somebody was asking, "Hey, Blue Melon, were you the guy that killed us in a Raven state issue, in such and such tournament?" And he's like, "Yeah, that was me."
Okay, so let's see. Back to, I wanted to show you something about, so that's the HyperNet thing. Thanks for telling me that, by the way. I didn't know that it was coming out of cores. I thought it was coming out of taxes. Like the taxes wouldn't be refunded, but you got your cores back. And that makes a huge difference. That puts a little more pressure on you to make sure that, we'll call it a raffle for clarity's sake, but that raffle goes through. Eve Echoes. Where is that? Here. There's an AMA tomorrow. No, not tomorrow. On the 12th. Ask Me Anything event. Let's go and visit this. Find out more info by clicking this link here. Oh, it's Facebook. All right. So Eve Echoes. Hello, pilots. Thank you for participating in the beta test. If you are not participating, by the way, in the beta test, I don't know if you can still make it in there. People seem to... Well, Ron, you actually demoed this for us. What did you think of Eve Echoes?
I mean, it's a mobile game, so, if you set your expectations on a mobile game, you're going to be super impressed. It is light years in front of just about every mobile game I've seen.
Wow. That's a lot, because you are... your history and work history and expertise are in user interface design. For people that don't know, what are some of the things that are in your portfolio?
So I was one of the original designers on the iPhone at Apple, and then I went to Microsoft and worked on the Xbox and the Surface, the big table.
Yeah.
I think we made like 10 of those.
Yeah.
They were in doctors' offices in a city near you.
Did they ever make it past prototyping? Because they don't seem like there was only a few of those ever made.
Yeah, they did. They made a version 2, and but they couldn't get the price down right on it. It was so expensive because the the difference between the Surface, the table, and like a normal touch screen was that the cameras were below, right? And it was an opaque surface or a semi-opaque surface that you could hover over and it would still recognize it.
without
It was way
touching
ahead of
it.
its time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was way
Wow.
ahead of its time.
So you're someone that understands and appreciates technology and especially user interfaces and how you can communicate. And the interesting thing, I think, to me is that the phone is such a small space, and how you communicate
Right.
through that, it's very difficult. It takes a lot
When I
of
was
thinking.
playing it, the first thing I thought was, like, how hot are these phones going to get, right?
Right.
Because they're so intensive. The graphics were so intensive. It was, pretty pretty amazing in the sense that they took a lot of shortcuts, with the interface and the kind of combat, and the combat is semi-automatic. But they also, they took like deliveries, and instead of having to hire someone or move it yourself, you have NPCs move stuff from station to station. So they took away a lot of the really complex interactions. And, but the other interesting thing is, I don't know if you guys have heard of Second Galaxy, I think it's called.
Yeah.
I guess it's like some sort of like Eve, whatever.
Mhm.
But apparently there's a huge, group of people from Second Galaxy that are moving over to that. So
Wow.
there was a lot of people in local. I mean, in all the city or in all the systems that I was in.
Yeah. So here's Second Galaxy. It's listed right under EVE Online, but that's very interesting. I guess, and that's what happened when EVE Online came around. It kind of pulled in a lot of players from other games that were similar but not as big. EVE has always had the pull that it's one shard and it's big and it's one timeline. And so EVE Galaxy, I think, would probably attract people who are interested in EVE Online. It's the same kind of game, except EVE Online has a tradition already. Okay, so Ask Me Anything is happening for EVE Echoes December 13th at 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. UTC, and again at 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. UTC. So try to make one of those. Okay. Monthly economic report just hit while we were sitting here talking. Thank you, CCP, for actually.
Woot woot.
Yeah, they used to. As soon as we would turn off the show, they would actually release something, and then we'd be like, "Oh, we'll have to talk about it tomorrow." So this is great. We actually get to see this first, and I was looking at it. I don't know if you guys have checked it out.
Scanning over it literally right now.
Yeah, there's
That outer passage.
Outer
Bounty.
Passage. Yeah, tell us what's important about Outer Passage.
Who moved in there? Someone moved in there. Tell me, Ron.
That's actually a really great segue. So, at the conclusion of the Southern War, fraternity and friends moved up into Outer Passage, and I've been beating the drums because it is consistently the most ratted systems, in EVE. Like every now and then a Delve system will kind of go to number 4, but then it'll quickly drop. If you look at Dotlan, at the bottom, the statistics on the statistics page, the most active systems, it's always at least 8 out of 10 out of the 3 hours and out of the 24 hours. So it's renters and fraternity and Hard Knocks Associates and some other random groups. So I've been trying to entice everyone to go up and kill stuff.
And they are the first place in NPC bounties November 2019. So like with 6.3 billion, 6.3 thousand billion, they earned more than Delve, which is about 5 billion.
Wow. Let's see here.
And beating Delve on bounties or mining is a big deal. But also there is a reverse thing with regions like Delve, or maybe to some degree Esoteria. So So here is my theory.
Mm-hmm.
Delve and Delve had actually and Goons Imperium had maybe 15 or 12 trillion mining and bounties potential, and they sometimes they max at 20 billion 20 trillion per month, and right now they're down to 4 or 5 or something. I think most of it is not the sino changes or our pressure or blackout or anything, but it's just people are now running out of things to farm toward. So Delve has 10,000 supers now, which means I think probably half of their
10,000 or 10,000 or 1,000? 10,000 supers, 1,000 times.
10,000 supers.
10,000.
So
Wow, that's an amazing number.
yeah, so imagine half of your member base have supers now. What do they do? Maybe they just log off and don't farm as much anymore. And that's the kind of thing that scared me with as a CSM. I keep putting this towards in Reddit posts or also internally to CCP. There is I think there's some kind of expiration effect in the gameplay they endorsed with roll changes and 3-4 years ago,
Yeah.
where they pushed people into cap farming, cap mining, and so on and so forth. And now stagnation hits. People don't people don't fight in caps, so capitals don't leave the game as fast. But so a lot of people have capitals and they have nothing to farm for, so they also slowly begin to log off. And I think this kind of effect will hit the most saturated regions first. And I think Valve is seeing it has been seeing it for since Blackout, basically. I think, or before, since January this.
Yeah. Interesting. So you're saying that people can basically they've grown too satisfied. That's what I think. We're looking at the velocity of ISK here in this graph. I'll zoom out so you can see it. Velocity of ISK represents the money flying around, basically, and how fast it's moving. Is it changing hands? And so when you have this high, that means that people are actually moving things back and forth. That means people are selling, people are buying, people are trading, people are whatever else. But money is being used to make things happen. And what you saw during the blackout is that tanked pretty hard over here at the very end of the graph. We'll zoom in on that. And its recovery was pretty slow because from September to October, it didn't recover that much, which was kind of alarming. And then the next month, October to November, it also seemed to have a lackluster pace. It isn't until post-November that you're seeing it start to skyrocket. Essentially, it's back in line with its normal downturn trajectory. But I think what you're going to see with ISK velocity after this HyperNet relay goes into the game tomorrow is that number will just shoot up incredibly high, higher than we've ever seen it before, because we have a new mechanism by which to move money around between players. And that's going to, you'll never see that stat low again after HyperNet gets in the game. Let's see what else we have in here. So a lot of people look at that as the health of the economy, or is money trading hands, or things being bought, et cetera, et cetera. These are hard to read for me, but total market value by region. No, that's market trade. And then trade balance, and then trade balance. Production value. It's always the forge, right? And then about half of the amount of stuff that's produced in forge is where you start getting into player territories like Delve. Why is forge such a high production area is clearly because the JITA market is there and completely dominates all other markets. And even now, I was looking at faction battleships. I thought, oh my God, they've skyrocketed. Like the rattlesnake is just like 800, 900 million per, which makes me so sad because I had 20 of those that I'd built and sold, but I sold them at like the 650 million per, because I wanted to get out. I wanted to be more liquid. I needed to buy PLEX, etc. So I had bought those blueprints and built them when they were really about 300, 400 million. And then I sold them at 6.5. And I thought, well, I did okay. You take all the taxes and all that, it starts to come down. But I thought I did okay. And then I just looked and they're at like 900 million. So I totally blew it. If I'd sat on those just another 2 months, completely different world.
When did they start to increase?
About a month ago. Let me see. I can get that up in a second. Let's get to this market viewer tool and go to Nightmare. And it's not just the Nightmare. It's not. Yeah.
I thought you said Rattlesnake.
I did say Rattlesnake, but it's also Nightmare. Let me go to Rattlesnake and then I'll talk about it.
Yeah, the Rattlesnake started to move around the 23rd. So just before Thanksgiving.
So what's happening, I think, is it possible the bookmark changes killed the escalation market and now less blueprints are?
No, because it's been on an uptrend since June.
It's been on a very, let's say, I'll just expand out. Yeah, so about June, the prices were about at cost. Pretty much with a really, really cheap blueprint. And then in June, you can't, this thing's in the way. In June, it started to creep up and then stabilized here in October for a long time. For the fall, it stabilized. And then it just really ramped up here at the end. I'll zoom in on this.
Yeah, but it's been on an overall uptrend.
Yeah. I think Shield, something happened with Shield. I don't know if the Shield slaves came in. Are they still out of the game? Or are they in? I can't.
Not yet.
No Shield slaves.
I think
well,
I think Invasions Chapter 1 might have been the start, but I don't know. I would have to look at time.
Well, some things for sure is I think the escalation thing affected the Shield, like say like Shield faction, like pirate items like A types and so on and so. So maybe the same effect is for rattlesnakes, but I'm not sure. But I'm sure that the A types and B types and like invulnerability fields, those are inflated due to the escalation and bookmark changes.
Yeah, I think here it says Thrill guy says Drone said that Pandemic Horde stopped farming rattlesnake BPs. That may be part of it, but that's definitely not it, because I think the same thing is going on with nightmares. Let's go look at those. These could be separate, but they've also shot up recently too, in dramatic fashion.
Reduction in anomalies equals reduction in escalations equals in reduction in influx of BPCs. So there you go.
Yeah. So the BPC price, the blueprint copy price, is going up, and that's what is causing these ships to go up in cost.
Well, it's the scarcity of the blueprints.
Right.
It's causing it to.
You're also starting to see a lot more, and when I say a lot more, I mean more than zero battleship comps. Like we're running a Nightmare comp. I know, well, probably, running rattlesnakes. And so, I mean, you're seeing a little bit more, and that's, I think in part due to some of the warp speed changes. But I don't think it would, fully explain this, but, it helps.
Right. Well, yeah. Okay. So when the reason that's important is when an alliance of hundreds of people decides they're going to use nightmares, they need to buy hundreds and hundreds to 300 for every 100 fighters. They have to buy nightmares. And so those get swept off the market and the scarcity drives the price up. On the other hand, if the scarcity of the blueprints goes up because they are dropping less, then the price goes up. And so those two factors might be at work. And if Horde actually did stop farming rattlesnake BPCs, then the price goes up. There's less people out there farming for them. I don't think that's the case, because normally it's too lucrative now. People should be farming them because the blueprints are going for 400 million or more. So that's going to be incentive to somebody. It's not an issue of Horde as a whole not looking for those. But anyway, I thought that was interesting. I thought they were both shield based. That's why I thought there might have been a change in shields that made them more popular. Go back to Rattlesnake. I knew the Rattlesnake was going to go up when there was a change. I think it was Elise and I that talked about it. And I want to say it was like 2 months ago there was a change. And
Nightmare actually hasn't really changed at all.
No, it wasn't. It was something to do with shields and how shield ships were probably going to go up in value. And
potentially, but the Nightmare really hasn't. The Nightmare's only been shifting since November.
Right, but again, I always look at those as possible delays because because supplies need to run out before prices change. So even if a change happens, there's stuff on the market that keeps it from going up. But when all that stuff gets bought out and the scarcity starts to hit, then you start seeing the price climb. So you can actually have a delayed effect where a change comes in June and you don't see real changes until August. And that's what I thought was happening. But who knows? I mean, this market is all kinds of crazy. In fact, let's go to PLEX and then we can just wrap out of here because this is going on long enough. PLEX is actually trending down, and it has been since June. Now, there's lots of different reasons for this. The spikes are sales and stuff like that, so we'll ignore all that. Here's what my thinking was. You can see the volume here. That's a sale, and that's why you see those spikes there. They're kind of hard to see, aren't they? Let's see if I can zoom in. Nope, can't zoom in on this map. I think PLEX prices are going to go up, especially if cores are burned every time you start a raffle. Every time you start a raffle, as opposed to every time a raffle successfully completes. Therefore, there are going to be a lot of people experimenting with the HyperNet relay, call it the raffle system. And so a lot of cores are going to be absorbed into the economy, which means that PLEX is going to be converted for those cores because there's going to be, I think, a lot of experimentation early on. I think people need to, I think it's so simple to use that it's accessible to people that don't understand the marketplace, because this is very simple. The concept is very simple. The interface is very simple. It's going to get an incredible amount of buy-in. So players are going to use it. They're going to need cores. That's going to pull on PLEX. I think PLEX scarcity goes up unless people start spending a lot of their own money on PLEX for cores. And I think scarcity goes up means the price goes up too. But that's not what's happening. Right now, PLEX is going down. Now, earlier in the few weeks ago, we talked about PLEX and it was going to go down. And it was, of course, there's the sales that happened in November right after on Black Friday. But there's also Christmas coming around and there's sales. And so we figured that those sales would create PLEX too much PLEX on the market because people are buying it and then at a discount rate and then selling it on the market. So that makes the price go down. So we know that November, December PLEX should kind of be dropping, but I don't know if that's what's going to happen after tomorrow. So we'll see. Again, I think it's a good time to buy PLEX. I'm not giving you trading advice. I'm telling you what I think, but this isn't advice. Don't go and lose your money listening to me. But I think it is a good time. It makes sense that it's a good time to buy PLEX for a couple of reasons. One is HyperNet Relay is going to demand PLEX, and that's another pull. And every single pull on PLEX makes the price go up over the long term. Two is I think you'll see skins bought and sold on HyperNet. I think you'll see them bought and sold on HyperNet. It seems like a good place for something like that. So skins are also bought with PLEX. So there's another pull. And I think there was one other thing the counter force is going to be Asian players. This is what we talked about a few weeks ago, that get up and running and start being able to buy PLEX to hold their accounts, because they'll start to have multiple accounts, just like a normal player, right? Like every normal player will start with one account and very quickly start to figure out they need 2 or 3 accounts to kind of do the stuff they want to do. If that's the case, and if they become a viable population, they're going to start to widen up into 1 to 3 accounts, and those accounts, they're going to want to pay for those in PLEX, another pull on PLEX. And the reverse is that those guys will be putting money in to PLEX in order to buy ISK so that they can get up and running faster. And I think that was the pressure that was going to be pushing it down. So it's all interesting, this the way the economy works. Anybody that tells you they have it figured out are probably trying to get some money out of you. So there are things that happen that just defy logic, and there are some things that happen that are completely predictable, and there are some things that happen that are completely predictable but took 2 or 3 months longer than you thought in order for the effects to take shape. It all depends on market pressures, and there's multiple pressures on any given object, including how many people have something in storage. So yeah. This was this brings us pretty much to the end of the show. We had a few other things, but we're not going to cover those. But I will read them off here at the end. Well, no, there's nothing else. I talked about Clear Skies 4. Ashtarothi, I think, got the rights to it, and he asked for permission to redo Clear Skies, and with new technology, which Ashtarothi is familiar with. And so he is looking for volunteers to help him put that together, or if people have ideas. And so look for that project going in a few months. And then also we talked about Google Stadia, a streaming service, or GeForce. You cannot play EVE Online through those services. You will get banned. And it looks like that's something that I didn't know anything about that until recently.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
No, you have to get like special PCs to run campers like me. I run like 45 accounts in a single camper PC. So
Wow.
imagine being able to run infinite campers on Stadia, right?
So tell us about that technology. How does that work, and why is it considered illegal in EVE Online?
You mean Stadia or
Stadia? Yeah.
So I don't know why they made that decision. Even though I'm in CSM, I don't think there's a this discussion on that. But
Yeah.
I just think
I can tell you why.
yeah, if you could run EVE on Stadia, you would potentially have infinite amount of power to be able to run as many characters as you want, which is interesting.
Yeah. Dazzling, you were saying you could tell us?
It's because it's to do with what Omek is saying, and then there's a second layer to it in that if one person uses Stadia or the GeForce Now system, and that person cheats or does something that gets them banned, there's no way to tell whether it's the same person when someone else uses the same service.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
True. So imagine like if it gets very popular, then CCP doesn't match people with their IPs, right?
Right.
And then it's why VPNs were once banned, but then they unbanned VPNs because some people in oppressed countries like Russia had lost access to EVE. But imagine if VPNs were too popular, then I imagine CCP could do something like that to them too.
Well, this technology, basically, you subscribe to a server and you're playing the game off their server. Therefore, the bottleneck of your computer's power that used to limit you from playing, depending on your computer, 1 to 3 to 5 to 10 to 20 accounts, again, depending on the strength of your computer, there's a certain limit that you could play off your computer. Plus, it's traceable to you what client you are. So if you do something nefarious, CCP knows exactly what house it came from and can ban that house, that IP address. And so you would bypass both those things if you were to use this Google Stadia or NVIDIA GeForce streaming service, where you play your games on somebody else's server. So you're playing through their computers, and that gives you limitless potential, removes that bottleneck of your computer's power, but also makes you untraceable. And so for both those reasons, CCP doesn't want you to use those services, at least not yet.
This isn't a new problem. It happened a few years ago. People started playing.
Shucks, we lost
where
you.
you essentially,
There you go.
Amazon used to do a similar service. It wasn't necessarily for gaming, but you could rent a virtual desktop in the cloud that had a half-decent graphics card that was able to run the Eve client. But they ran into the same issue. Somebody would cheat or bot or whatever, get banned, and then the whole block would go.
Yeah. Let's see. Arenal Hexong says, sounds shady from CCP's part. VPNs actually limit your bandwidth. I don't know what he thinks sounds shady, but it sounds pretty logical to me that you need to be able to enforce discipline on the players of this game. If they anonymize themselves through a separate service, that just seems like a recipe for disaster. Players being able to escape accountability is already a problem in EVE Online. And if they go further in that direction, that would be bad for just bad in general for behavior in EVE Online.
The VPN thing, the problem with VPNs is actually reasonably easily solved, because they can, instead of just your IP, they can actually ban your physical machine.
Your EMAC number, your electronic machine serial number?
It actually goes deeper than that.
Wow.
I believe there's something you can call from, basically like a serial number off the CPU.
Oh,
it's a combination of different factors, but essentially you can create a unique identifier for any given machine. Yeah, so if you're using a VPN, instead of banning the whole IP, which will affect many players, they just ban your hardware.
Wild.
And that's why I think Stadia got banned, is that they would, if you hardware banned, you're banning the Stadia hardware, not your.
Yeah. Red Thought asks, can Eve be run on Linux? Yes, that was one of the cool things about EVE Online. Back in 2007-8, it could be run on Macintosh or OS X, and it could be run on Linux. And I thought that was incredibly cool that a sci-fi game as complex and beautiful as EVE Online could be run on those machines. But as EVE Online gets more beautiful, they have to call on the power of DirectX, and then you start getting into the splitting up of the platforms. Linux starts to get left behind. OS 10 gets left behind, and Windows keeps getting better and better because that's where the majority of people play. So when the game was kind of like potato mode, it was less of an issue. It was still an issue, but it was less of an issue. And I think Linux is still supported. And I know because I play on Macintosh. Did they drop it? They did, right? I think they officially dropped it.
It never has been officially supported, but a CCP developer in his own free time packaged it up in such a way that you can use it.
Oh, I had no idea. So it was never officially supposed to be played on Linux. But they had, I thought, a Linux download or something. Well,
it's sort of semi-official in that it was made by a CCP developer, but it's not advertised as such in any way, because it's not on their website. You have to go to somewhere else to get it.
Wild. Okay, so.
But if you know what you're doing, it's actually not that hard to set it up yourself without using the semi-official client.
Yeah, so. I'm not going to read these questions because some of them. Okay. All right, guys, that's it. I'm tired. You know, what we're going to do, and we are doing this December, is reviewing the year, and then we'll review the decade, because again, this is a 19. So, or it's the end of a decade. It's the 19th year of 2000. So next year is 2020. We begin the 20s. And so we are reviewing this year through a few shows, Talking in Stations, but we also want to go all the way back to 2010, 2011, when this game was on fire with growth and potential. And now it has a new growth cycle, so we're excited about that. And we'll go back to explore the old growth cycle, which happened around 2010, and go through the decade, because a lot of stuff happened in EVE Online. And then we're going to talk about the most influential player of the year for Talking in Stations from our perspective, and also the most influential organization, whether it be a corp or an alliance. So anything else you guys want to mention before we go? All right. Let's actually have a look. And good, Ron is streaming. So we'll send you guys over to Ron. He'll take you for the rest of the morning or afternoon if you're in England. All right, that's today in EVE Online. We will see you tomorrow. And stay tuned for this raid. Here you go.